Hello everyone, thank you for watching this video. In this video, we will talk about what is IaC, why do we need IaC, and different tools that we use in the enterprise environment to implement the IaC framework. IaC stands for Infrastructure as a Code, which is the most commonly used solution in the enterprise cloud environment these days. IaC will help us to automate the cloud infrastructure in a consistency way. So before we start talking about the different tools that we use to implement the IaC framework, let us understand the common challenges that we experience in day to day in the cloud environment. So if you're working as a cloud engineer or Azure administrator, you might have noticed these challenges in your day-to-day activities. So let us take an example of a server build. Um, if you need to build a server, we generally input a lot of information like a VNet, subnet, subscription, location, OS information, VM size. We update the tagging information. Sometimes the issues could be like you deployed in a wrong VNet and wrong subnet, a location or different subscription, wrong OS version, and you added a public IP by mistake. Maybe you deployed a VM with the wrong VM size, which is going to impact your production environment in future. And you deployed a virtual machine with the wrong backup configuration, maybe a non-production server deployed into production backup policy. Like you deployed a VM with the wrong tanks, maybe a wrong business unit, maybe wrong cost center that is going to impact cost to your business. So there are many more issues you might also have experienced with the manual deployment, especially with respect to the naming standards. You deployed a VM with the wrong naming standards. It's really hard to identify the resources later. So these are the couple of issues that you might have noticed being a cloud engineer or working as an Azure administrator in the enterprise environment. I can consider these into a human errors category with the manual deployment in the Azure portal. If it is a one server, maybe two servers, you might avoid these problems. But when you have a multiple servers deployment and you might have a tight deadlines, you might tend to see these human errors. And moreover, it's really hard to fix these human errors once we hand over the server to the customer. Maybe once we go live with the application that is depending on the servers. So we have really seen these issues in the enterprise environment, and it's really hard to fix these problems, and it requires a lot of downtime. So other common issue that we see is time to delivery of cloud resources, right? So example, building a virtual machine in Azure portal might take 10 minutes to 15 minutes. Even if you put a little bit more attention, look at all the best practices, you might build VM in a 30 minutes to 1 hour, the maximum time. But that is not the delivery of resource to the end user or application team, because most of the organizations go with the compliance policies. Like you build a machine from Azure portal, then the operating system team or different stakeholders will take care of their activities, such as joining the server to the domain, probably installing the required tools such as vulnerability scanning tools, antivirus tools, some of the monitoring tools. Sometimes we do the OS patching before we hand over to the application team. Sometimes there are some other dependencies before we hand over to the application team. So if it is a one team who is performing this all these activities, maybe we can add some more bandwidth and try to complete the activities so to deliver the application server to the application team. But what if we have a dependency with the different teams? So they have their own priorities, they have their own tasks to perform, and this would eventually impact the delivery of the server or applications to the uh, application team. So these are the couple of challenges that we see, and I know there are many other possible options to reduce the time, by example, creating a custom image, avoiding the patching, but it's not going to fix the problem in a longer run, right? So there's a lot of dependency, and we have seen issues where the server build taken almost like 1 week to 2 weeks, and more than that, to deliver to the application team. It's not just the server build from Azure portal. It's about time taken for other teams to act on it before we deliver to the application team. This is one of the case, and other case could be like if you want to deploy the multiple resources to support the new customer, maybe new applications. It could be a three-tier architecture that you have to deploy. Maybe you need to have a couple of web servers, couple of app servers, and database servers, including the load balancer configuration, configuring backup, DR, and monitoring for all of them at once. So this would generally takes, 1 month as well, sometimes couple of weeks as well to complete the deployment. Okay, so these are the couple of challenges that you see. And when you do these deployments, we often see inconsistency across the environment. You might see that test and production may not be same. Development has got a more configuration than the production. So we see a lot of problems. Some it's not everywhere, but 90% of the times we see challenges, and we have to put a lot of policies to make sure that the team has implemented this deployments without any problem. We have to put a lot of checks, and we have to put a lot of validations in place to ensure that the deployments are correctly gone live to the customer. So these are the couple of challenges that you see when you uh, deploy the resources manually and using Azure portal. Then what we used to do earlier, we used to build PowerShell scripts, and we used to do the resource automation, like VM build automation. And this used to work fine, but when you have a larger environment with the multiple changes consistently, so this is not the best solution to automate the infrastructure. Okay. Then Microsoft introduced a solution called ARN templates. This one of the IaC framework tool, which will be using it. So Azure Resource Manager deployments are used for automating the cloud infrastructure. It could be a virtual machine, even it can be used to automate the PaaS resource as well. Okay, but ARN templates are specific to the Microsoft Azure platform, and we know that most of the companies are aligned or maybe planned for a multi-cloud deployment. They have resources. Some of the resources deployed in AWS, some of them are in a Microsoft Azure platform, some of them are in a GCP as well. So companies are looking for a one standard tool which can support multiple cloud platform. So that is when Terraform has become more popular in the enterprise cloud environments. So this can be used to do the multiple cloud providers deployment as well. So when it comes to the IaC, we use Terraform or ARN template to automate the cloud deployments. So we need to have a quick check here. They will only automate the cloud deployment, which means you can automate the VM deployment, VNet, Subnet, Azure PaaS resources, or many other Azure resources deployment. But Terraform cannot be 100% automate the OS level activities, such as joining the server to the domain, or probably installing certain tools. It also contains some of the features like a provisioners. You can use them to automate, but when it comes to the enterprise cloud platforms, it may not be a great tool to perform, because enterprise want one tool to perform many activities. That is where the configuration management tools have been introduced. So earlier we used to use a DSC, a design state configuration on Azure using PowerShell scripts, but nowadays most of the companies are using the Ansible platform for automating the configuration management activities for your virtual machines or any other resources deployed in the cloud environment. So basically, we also use the Azure DevOps or a GitHub Actions. So in Azure DevOps, we use the Azure repos for a version control, and we use um, pipelines for resource deployments. So the pipelines can have multiple stages. One stage could be uh, resource deployments on Azure, like deploying a virtual machine. The other stage could be post VM build activities, maybe post resource deployment activities. So that can call the Ansible tower. The pipeline can call the Ansible tower, and Ansible tower can contains a lot of predefined playbooks, okay, and that can perform set of activities such as domain join and installing some antivirus tools and performing the OS patching. So many other activities it can perform, the playbooks can perform. So with the help of Azure DevOps and Terraform, then Ansible Tower, we can do end-to-end automation using a proper infrastructure as a code framework. So we call them as IaC framework. IaC is not just about a Terraform. So I would say it's about end-to-end automation using all these tools. Different companies might have a different other configuration management tools being used. So some companies don't even use Ansible. They only rely on the PowerShell and they just use the self-hosted agent, which can talk to your Azure environment, I mean, newly deployed resources and perform the voice level activities. Some companies use the custom script extension in Azure portal, Azure, and execute the remote deployments. So there are many ways, many tools are available to automate the overall. I mean, eventually we need to follow a proper IaC framework or a standard so that we can choose any configuration deployment method, but overall, the end-to-end server build or maybe end-to-end cloud resources deployment can be automated without any issues. So that is what I wanted to cover today, just to give you some brief about what is IaC and why do we need to have IaC in place, then different tools that we use to implement the IaC. And in the upcoming sessions, we can have a brief about what is Terraform, what are its building blocks, and how we can start creating the Terraform templates and start deploying the resources. And later, we can talk about what is the IaC framework and different folder structure and the repo structure that we can follow to implement the IaC framework in the enterprise environment. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if you have any comments, please put in the comment section and do reach out to me for any other queries. Thank you for your time and have a good day.